All right, everybody, we're here with project number 2. This is Batty Lou. And I went ahead and prepped my surface with white. Actually, I sanded and sealed it with a sealer, the wood sealer, and then I did a thin coat of white on it just to brighten it up a little bit, because with this project, we want a real bright background. And I went ahead and put on my palette. I've got bright orange, I've got canyon orange, I've got Georgia clay, and then I also have paint all over my hand, and then I have lemon yellow, which I'm not sure I'm going to use, and then I've got bright yellow and cadmium yellow. So those are the colors I'm kind of going with for my background on this. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to do the same type of a background, just kind of slip slapping on there for the background. You're going to blend a few of these colors together and we'll see what we come out with. All right, so I've got my brush a little bit wet here. I'm going to pick up some of the bright yellow, and I'm going to start in the middle with the bright yellow. Oh yeah, really pretty. And just kind of slip slap it on there. Nothing real fancy. You can go out as far as you want because you're going to add more to it here. Okay, now I'm going to, with my paint still wet, or my brush still wet, can't talk this morning, I'm going to pick up some of that cadmium yellow, and I'm just going to kind of slip slap it in here too. Just anywhere. You can always add more of the bright yellow if you get too much of the cadmium on there. And then I'm going to go over here, and I'm not even going to, well, I'll wipe off my brush. I'm not going to rinse it off, but I'm going to wipe it off. I'm going to pick up some of the canyon orange. And I'm going to start with the outside edges a little bit. And I'm just kind of going to bring some of this in here and just kind of go all the way to the bottom and the top. And then I'm going to wipe my brush off a little bit here. And I'm going to go back in and get some more of that bright yellow. I want to bring it back in here. Try not to drag it into the orange too much, because you'll bring it back out into the other area. We don't want to make a bunch of mud. Okay, now I'm going to come in over here, and I'm going to get some of the Georgia clay. And it's mostly going to be towards the outside edges. So I'm going to kind of just go around the edges. Get a little bit more. When this dries, we will probably go back in and add some more of the yellow. And just kind of bring that out. Okay, I'm liking kind of how that looks, but I do want more yellow in the middle, so I think I'm going to let this dry, and then I'm going to come back and I'm going to add a little bit more yellow, and I may have to add some more orange at the same time. So I'm going to let this dry for a minute, and then we'll be back. Okay, so I think it's mostly dry. I'm going to go back in here and add some more of the yellow. I have a little bit of water on my brush, not a whole lot. I'm going to pat some of that off, and then I'm just going to brighten this back up a little bit. Notice I keep my yellow in the middle to begin with. If you get any orange on there, just pat it out if you want. And I'm just kind of going back in here really carefully and add in more of that yellow. And I'm going to actually blend it with the orange a little bit up here. There we go. I like that. I think I'm going to stick with that as I add more. And actually, I think I'm going to add a little bit more up in there. Okay, I'm going to stick with that. So we'll let this dry and then we're going to transfer our pattern onto our design. Okay, everyone. The shadows in my window are playing tricks on me, so I'm going to paint sideways today, but maybe it's better for you guys. I did go ahead and get my drawing on there. Hopefully you can see that with that stupid shadow in the way. But I did go ahead. I finally just quit with the background. I put a little more yellow in there, and I just decided just to leave it the way it is, and we'll see how it goes. But right now, we're going to go ahead and start base coating. We're going to be doing the hat and the dress on Batty Lou. And for that, we've got some slate, or actually it's neutral gray, sorry. And then we're going to base coat those with the neutral gray, and then we'll be shading those in a little bit. We're not going to shade around this drawing because we want the background to be really bright behind her. So we'll just start base coating. And I'm using my angle brush again. And you can go over that stripe at the bottom of her dress because you're going to be painting that again anyway. Gonna go under the scarf. You'll notice since we're painting on wood that sometimes it's much easier to go with the grain of the wood when you paint, because it's just, your paint goes in better. So we're going to go all the way up to the broom. And then I'm going to turn this around and I'm going to do her hat. And I've already traced the bat onto the hat, so I'm just going to go around this bat. And I'll add another coat. All right, so we've got her dress and part of the hat. And let's see, I think I'll go. All right, so there's our girl here. You can see that without the shadows. We've got her hat and her dress done. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and base coat in her head. And with this, we're going to use our bleach sand. I've already got some on my palette here. And we're just going to base coat her little face in, or her head. I'm going over the eyes because I'm sure I'll be able to see them through that bleach sand. Okay, we're going to let that dry, and then we're going to come back and add another coat to that. And in the meantime, I am going to go ahead and base coat in my scarf. Okay, so I've got my foliage green and my purple cow on my palette. And what I'm using is this really tiny angle brush that is a 1/8 angle brush. So it's pretty small. And I'm just going to use it to base coat my scarf because it's in sections. So I do think I better put my glasses on for this one. Okay. Remember, if you mess up, it's no big deal. You can always paint over. Like I did. Sorry about my reach. And we will go back in and base coat these again, or add, more color because they'll need it. Okay, so we've got her scarf base coated in. We might have to add a little bit more to the purple, but for the most part, it's base coated in. And as you can see, I can see my eyes through there, so I'm not going to worry about it. I'm going to go ahead and base coat those white. We're using Snow White. All right. Got our eyes base coated in there. What we're going to do now is we're going to base coat the broomstick. And with that, you're going to use raw sienna for that, which I already have on my paint palette here. So we'll get started and base coat the broomstick. And I'm using my 1/8 inch angle brush again. And we'll let that dry and then we'll add another coat to that. Okay, we're going to go ahead and base coat the broom, and for that you're going to use True Ochre. This color. We're going to use that for the base coat on the broom, and it's just basically basing it in. Nothing special on here. You'll notice on painting on this orange, you really have to go over your colors a lot because it's not a very forgiving paint as far as painting your base coats on. But in order to get your colors really bright, you have to go over them again and again. And while that's drying, we'll go ahead and base coat some more in our broomstick while it's dry. Okay, had to move things around a little bit because the sunshine kept coming through my window and putting shadows everywhere. So what we're going to do now is we're going to shade her face, and we're going to do that with Antique White. So just grab a little bit on your brush. It's okay if you get it on the eyes because you're going to be shading the eyes anyway. And just go all the way around her face, around where her scarf is. And I'm making mine kind of a thick line. Don't forget to go above her eyes or around her eyes. Okay, and then take a little bit of your gray sky. If you need to let that dry for a second, let it dry. And then I want you to take a little bit of gray sky, and we're going to shade around the inside part of her eyes. You can go all the way around them, even though we're going to be putting in that black pupil area. It's okay, it'll cover that up. So I would just go all the way around. It's just easier. Gotta keep my hand out of the way so you can see. And then go up above where the pupil is. It's kind of like that. You see that? I know it's upside down. Here we go. What we're going to do now is the lines on the hat and the dress. And for that, you're going to need a little bit of the lamp black. You're going to need some of that gray sky, and you're going to need some white. So just put a little bit of each one of those on your palette. Okay. Then I want you to take the smallest brush you have. I'm going to be using this 1/8 angle brush. If you have a flat square brush, that'll work really well, or you can use the angle brush. And these are just going to be real thin stripes. So you don't have to be real precise with these, but you do want your paint thinned down a little bit. So I'm thinning my paint down with some water. You can do this with a script liner if you want. You'll just have really thin lines. I want mine just a little bit thicker. I think we'll do the hat first. So I'm going to try it on my paper first just to see what kind of a line I have. That's about right. So I'm going to go from one side to the other. And if it's too thin, add some more paint to it. And then I'm going to go about right here with it, because in between there's going to be other stripes. I'm just doing the black right now. And just kind of keep your lines going. We can go over these if they're not dark enough later. And then I'm also going to do one down here below the bat. Okay, so that's what that looks like right there. Now what we're going to do is we're going to rinse our brush and get a little bit of water, and we're going to do some of the gray sky. And the same thing, just a little thin paint. And then you're going to go right next to that first line, and you're going to do the stripe of gray sky. And it doesn't have to be exact. I mean, you can leave a little space between there. They don't have to be just, you know, right next to each other. And then I'm going to do one kind of right where the bat is. And then down here where the bat is. So that's how it kind of looks. Now what you're going to do is the white. Same thing. A little watered down paint. You don't want this too bright, so make sure you have it, watered down good. And then I'm going to go in between that gray and the next one up. And if it's not bright enough, add more paint. Because you don't want it to look exactly like the gray line. So I'm going to go back over mine a little bit just to brighten them up a little bit. All right, there you go. You have a striped hat. Now we're going to do the same thing, only this time we're going to use a liner brush because we don't want those wide of stripes. We're going to do thinner stripes. So I've got my liner brush. That's a script liner brush. This one is a size 2 that I'm going to be using. Basically the same thing. You know me and liners, we don't like each other, but that's okay. We're going to go for it. Remember to thin that paint a little bit. Kind of scroll your brush, take some of the water off of it, dip it back in your paint, scroll your brush a little bit. And then we're just going to be doing lines on it. And you're going to go at an angle, and then you're going to go straight, and then you're going to go at another angle the other direction. And kind of let your hand move free if you can. If you get a little bit too close to each other, don't worry about it. They're going to be closer at the top than they are at the bottom. And if you're like me, your stripes aren't going to be perfectly straight. Okay, so kind of like that. Now we're going to do the gray. Same thing. Okay. So go ahead and do your gray lines right next to your black ones. Remember, you want to leave some room for the white lines. And if you don't want to do the white lines on this, you can always leave it just black and gray. You can make her dress be any way you want. Mine got a little bit wonky on there, but that's okay. Can't tell, right? I'm going to put a few lines. I don't know if I'll do one every section. I'm doing mostly those white lines at the bottom section. Stop. Okay. There. See, lines don't have to be perfect. You're going to be shading this anyway, so we just wanted the lines on as the fabric. Okay? All right. Pretty cute. I like it. All right. I went ahead and drew her mouth back in and shaded under her mouth. And now we're going to get ready. We're going to shade her dress and her hat. I also put my bat back in right here that I'm going to shade around. So we're going to be shading with lamp black. Very lightly, because lamp black can be pretty dark. So take quite a bit of that paint off your brush when you go to shade. I really like using my mop brush with lamp black because it does help take out some of that darkness. Just blends it better. I'm going to go under the bat. And again, going to take out some of that. Just blend it in a little. I'm going to wait and go around the top of it because I don't want to blur anything. Tiny bit of lamp black on there. Now, I also drew in the line on the bottom of her skirt that we're going to be filling in. So I'm going to float a shade around the top part of that line. Just like so. Okay, so we've got the bat underneath the bat and above the little hem on the skirt. Now I'm going to go back to the top of the bat and see if I can get a really tiny bit of paint on my brush. Got a little bit of black on the outside, but the other end of my brush is clean and wet, so I got it off. So I just went around the bat. Now I'm going to go down the sides of her dress because you know me, I like to outline everything. Actually, I'm going to wait until that dries. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to start on her hat. I'm going to go on this side. I'm going to let that dry and I'll go up here. Just went around the top part of the bat. Actually, I'm going to straighten that up a little bit. I'm just going to go around the edge of the hat. And again on the other side. Okay, now we're going to do some more on the hat band here. And I'm going to go around the hat band. Remember, you want to use that mop brush dry, so if it gets too much paint on it, just kind of swirl it around on your palette and get some of that paint off. And while that's drying on the hat band, I'm going to go down here and do the sides of her skirt. You don't have to do that bottom section because we're going to be painting it next. Okay, now back up to the hat band. Okay, now we're going to go under the bat on the hat. Okay, so we've got her all shaded for now. We are going to be doing highlights on this, so I'm going to clean off my mop brush a little bit. I want to use it again, so I'm just going to swirl it around. And now I'm going to get some of my bleached sand. And I'm going to be painting the trim on her dress with the bleached sand. And just, oops, I think I got the wrong thing. I did. Got antique white instead. Okay, we'll let that dry and then we'll give that another coat. So, she's starting to look pretty cute. I've got a little bit of spice pink here. I'm going to take my Deerfoot stippler, which is dry, dip it in there a little bit, and I'm going to swirl it around on my thing here, and I'm just going to really lightly add some rosy cheeks to little Miss Batty Lou. I think I want it a little tiny bit darker than that. Notice I'm just really lightly putting that on there. And there you go. How cute is that? Just really light. She's a happy girl. Even if she's dead, right? All right, I think I'm going to go ahead and paint in my bat up here since I've got the black out. And we could actually do the one on the dress as well. So go ahead and do both those bats and just kind of base coat them in. Okay, so I've got my bats in. Now, I put some bittersweet chocolate on my palette, and that's what we're going to use to shade the broomstick. So go ahead and do that. Turn it this way so I don't get into my... And I'm just real carefully going down that other side, or up the other side. I'm not really putting a whole lot of paint on there, just enough to outline it. My brush is starting to fuzz out a little bit. I might have to get a new brush. Okay, so it's got this. See that? And then I have some raw sienna on my palette, and I'm going to use raw sienna to go around my broomstick for the moment. I'm also going to make a little top on that broom where the threads are going to be there. So I shaded underneath that so that it would look like it's underneath. I'm also going to do the bottom. I'm not really going to go around this edge yet. Now I think what I'm going to do is get my dioxazine purple and my evergreen, and we're going to do some of the shading on the scarf. I think I'll do the purple first. And I have a smaller mop brush here that I'm going to use. And you can see how I'm just going around all those edges and putting it where it needs to be. Okay, so there he is, or she. There's the scarf. Got all my edges done. I love that green and purple together. All right, now I think what we're going to do is go ahead and shade the bottom part of our dress. And we're going to use that antique white. And we may do like we did with the mummy and put a little extra shade on there. We'll see. I cleaned off my mop brush, so shouldn't have any purple or green on there. And I'm just going to do that side and the edges. I'm not going to do the bottom because I'm going to highlight the bottom. I am going to touch up where I got on the broom though with some of the raw sienna. Okay, now I think what we're going to do is we're going to shade our bats. Now I'm going to use a really tiny brush for the one down here. And I'm going to use some of the bleached white on the corner. Now this is an 1/8 inch brush. If you have a small square brush, that's fine. Somehow I still have black in mine. And I'm going to do this really lightly. I don't need to have, you know, a really thick. I'm basically just outlining. I'll show you here. So that's basically what I did. If you can see that, I'll put it up pretty close. Just really lightly. top. I'm going to use my next to the biggest brush here. And again, on the top one, just really light, like that. Can you see that? Really lightly around that bat. All right. Now, I think what I'm going to do is go around here to the broom. And what we're going to do here is we're going to add in some lines of our, let's see, our bright yellow and our raw sienna. I want it to have a little bit of color. I don't want it to be real blah. So at first, I'm going to use that little 1/8 inch angle brush again. And these are going to be really light lines. And then I'll go back with a liner and do some thin lines that are thicker. Okay? Yeah, that's really thin. I mean, you're barely going to be able to see these. See that? Just barely. Now the bright one, you don't want to do too much here. I'm just going to pull one of those light lines up at the top there. Okay, so now I'm going to get my liner brush, which is a script liner. It's the number 2. And now we're going to go in and we're going to put some lines on our broom. Remember to add that water to your paint, thin it out. I may even add some of the lines of the bittersweet chocolate, just because I want some contrast between the, yeah, this one's going to be too light. So I'm going to add some of these bittersweet chocolate. Just going to come down here. Yeah, that's better. Just all kinds of lines. They don't have to be perfect. Just throw them in there. And then I'm going to get some of these yellow. And do the same thing. And you might have to put a little bit more on your brush. Just so it'll show up. See that? Just lines. Do them any way you want. Okay, and then the top part right here, I'm going to add some more of those lines. Just go in this direction. I'm going to let those dry before I add the yellow ones on it. While those lines are drying, we can go in here and we can base coat our eyes, the pupils in her eyes. With the black. And as you can see in your pattern, it's pretty much the whole bottom part of the eye, it's just black. Look at that. How cute is that? All right. So we'll let that dry for a minute. I think our other lines are dry, so I'm going to go ahead and add my yellow to my top part of my broom. Just a few little lines here in between the other ones. Yeah. Yep. You can kind of see it there. I think the sun's trying to go down on me here. All right. Now for the bats on the bottom of her skirt. I'm going to show you how to draw these. Now they're on your pattern and they're pretty easy. For the little bats on her skirt, you're going to go a line, a line, a line, a line, and then a dot. So can you see that? I hope you can. Just doing a line, a line, a line, and a line, and then a dot. Okay? Really simple. You could do this with a pen if you really wanted to, but I think it'd be easy enough just to do it with a script liner. And that's saying a lot coming from me. Okay. So a line, a line, a line, and a line. And then a line, a line, a line, a line. And we're just going to do 5 of them across, or however many you want to put on there. There you go. I'll show you that up close. See that? Really simple. Now, we're just going to take the end of our paintbrush and dip it in the thicker part of your paint, not the watered down part. And you're going to put a dot. One of my dots got a little big. You don't want too big of a dot. But I'm going to leave it for now. There. See? Just little bats. From a distance, nobody's going to even notice those little bats, but they're there. Just add something cute to the bottom of her skirt. All right. Now, what we're going to do is we are going to highlight a little bit here with our white. We're going to highlight the hat. Not too heavy. And we're just going to highlight the top section up here. Really light. Practice on something to make sure it's light enough for you. Remember to have enough water on your brush. Just like that. And then I'm going to do the same thing around the hat band. Again, really light. With enough water. Like so. And then I'm going to go up here and I'm going to add just a little bit to the tippy top curve of his hat, her hat. So it has a little bit around the curve. Okay. And then I think I'm going to make a little bit of a highlight on her skirt. Just maybe on the same side as we did of the hat. Got too much water. See, just real light on that one side. I didn't make it really very pronounced. It almost looks like a stripe instead. I might highlight or lighten that up a little bit. Remember, when you do your highlights, you can always add a little bit more to make them just stand out more. Like on here, I'm going to go through and add a little bit more to this, so it's a little brighter. And now I'm going to highlight the scarf. The bottom part of the scarf. And then the top part of the scarf right here. And then the top part of the scarf here. And I'm going to go around this little edge of the scarf here on the side. And I think I'm even going to add a little bit down here. Can you see that? See where I highlighted? I'm going to go back and brighten that up a little bit on the scarf, especially this top. I think I'm going to brighten this one up on her side of her dress here. Just a little bit. I think the hat's good enough. I'm not going to brighten the hat any. Okay. Now I'm going to add a C-stroke to my eyes. Nope. First of all, I'm going to add some lines to my broomstick with some of the burnt or the bittersweet chocolate. Just going to add a few little lines here. Make it look more like a stick. Okay. Just a few. Nothing real fancy. Now I'll add the C-strokes to my little girl's eyes here. And I'm going to do them around this side. There we go. Sorry about the reach. I think I'm also going to add one up here on my hat. Just because, for good measure. I'm going to take it, I'm going to go along that line that was highlighted, and I'm going to take my, and just drag a C-stroke down that way. See that? I like that. Okay. Okay, I think our bats are done. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight her skirt along the bottom with some white. Don't drag through your C-strokes. Remember I told you to do those last? I don't take my own advice, do I? All right, so I'm just going to add a white line right down below those bats. A little bit of a highlight on her skirt. All right. Now, we have some tiny bats that are underneath her hat. As you can see in the pattern, they're right here. So we are going to draw those in, or you can trace them in using your graphite paper. Okay, so I drew my little bats in. And what I'm going to do now is take this little itty bitty 1/8 inch angle brush, and I'm going to just base coat those little bats. Okay, got 3 little bats. I am going to go back in here and give them some ears. There. Awesome. And we're not going to do anything to those bats. They're just little bats. Now, the other thing we're going to do is we're going to add some twinkles to our bats, the big bats, either on her dress and on the hat. And to do this, this is what they call crystal craft twinkles by Deco Art. You can see that there. Some in the lid. And this it takes a little while to dry. So you want to do it pretty much when you're done. And we're basically done other than the line work and some of the stuff we're going to add to the background. So I'm going to show you how to go ahead and add this anyway. Okay. And it's just like a glue. And I tend to put it on fairly thick. And just kind of put it in your lines of your bat. And you can see I'm putting it on, or I'll show you in a second, I'm putting it on pretty thick. Okay. So there you go. Can you see that? Oh yeah, it twinkles good on the picture. So we're going to let that dry, and then we're going to come back and we're going to do our line work and some of our background lines. All right, so we're back. And this is part of a Lori Spelt stencil that I cut out a long time ago to use. But it is BCS $240. It's BCS 240. And it has a tiny star on it that I wanted to use. And then it also has the swirl that I wanted to use. Now you could just draw these in and do them without stenciling them, or you could get the stencil and do them. I'm, for the sake of time, going to do the stencil. And first I'm going to use a little Canyon Orange. I mean, not Canyon Orange, I'm sorry, Georgia Clay. The darker of the oranges that we used on the border. And I'm going to just swirl in, or stencil in some of these swirls wherever I want them. Kind of hard with its little itty bitty stencil. This is where I said you could have done this earlier when you did your background if you wanted to, or you could do it after if you're just going to do, you know, a little bit here and there, which I wasn't planning on doing a whole lot. So that's why I'm decided to do them now. just a little bit. Okay, and then I want this little itty bitty star. I don't want a big star. So I'm just going to take that off my brush. And I'm going to pick up some of the this is lemon yellow. And I'm going to stencil a few of these little stars. They're not going to be real bright. They're just going to be a little bright. If you wanted them real bright, you could do white first and then put your yellow stars in there. But I just want my background to be a background. I don't want it bright enough that it takes away from what I just painted. But I'm going to put quite a few of these little stars. I'm going to let this dry some more, and then we're going to come back and we're going to add our details with the lines with the pen. Okay, it's not quite dry, but it's dry enough for now. I'm going to use this micron pen that is the PN again. It's the one I like to do details with. And I'm going to start with her face. So I'm going to go around her face. And her eyes. And then I'm going to do her mouth. And you can look at your pattern to see where your lines are. She's got a little nose right here. So that's what I did with her face. Just kind of follow the lines on your pattern. Then I'm going to go around my scarf. And you remember what I told you about when we were doing the pumpkin or the mummy pattern is I don't do real straight lines. I like wiggly lines. And around the hat, I probably am not going to do that either, but I will come up here and do the curly Q on the hat. And we got some strings on our bats. For the bat so that you can actually see it. That means I got to do liner stuff again. Okay. And we're just going to make it look like a little necklace coming out around here. So just a little necklace. You could actually outline your bat in white on her hat if you really wanted to. I am not going to, but if you wanted to, you could. I am going to add a little line to the top part of her hem and do some little hatch marks there, as well as on the bottom. And do some little hatch marks on the scarf. I'm not going to do it on her face, but we will to the broom. Do that. Now, the other fun thing we're going to do is we are going to add a bunch of little lines everywhere just for the heck of it, for fun. And I'm going to do it with the pen. You could do it with your liner brush if you want. I'm going to make this bat look like he's moving. And then I'm going to give her a couple of arms, but they're just line arms. They're nothing fancy. So I'm going to come out about here. And this arm's going to go down there. The other arm is going to be bent and go up to the broom. And then back over. Can you see that? Just little thin arms. And then I'm going to go down here and I'm just going to add some little thin lines for legs. Just lines. Okay? Now, the fun part. We're going to add a bunch of little hair and stuff on her. She's going to have hair going everywhere. And it can be lines just anywhere at all. See? Just hair. We'll make some long hair that comes out from back there. And then we're going to add some really silly hair that's coming everywhere. We're going to add some up here. Okay, just silly hair everywhere. Now I'm going to go down here to my broom and I'm going to add in some black lines to the actual broom and up here on the broom. See those? Can you see her lines on her hair? Awesome. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go around the edge of my pattern with a thin line of black with my pen. And I think we've about got it. There she is. She turned out really cute. Little Miss Batty Lou. If I can talk tonight. All right. Well, I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you got to use some of your other techniques like the liner brush and the pen and doing your floating. So I hope you had fun with this. She's a cutie, and you can do this on any surface. She'd be great on a treat bag, a trick-or-treat bag. She could be great on anything. So just have fun with it. Okay? Thanks. I'll see you later.